Hello, welcome back to my channel. I hope you enjoy this video. Today is all about the T110e5. It's a tier 10 American heavy tank, which I personally think is totally awesome. And I will be looking at the tech tree that leads up to this tank from tier 6 to the tier 10 one. So the tech tree includes the M6, T29, the T32, the M103, and then finally the T110e5. Taking a look at the M6 heavy tank, it has one of the best tank guns at tier 6. It's a strong 90mm that has really punchy damage output, and its power to weight ratio is making it easily able to reach its maximum speed of 35 kilometers per hour. Its frontal turret and hull armor is well protected when using its excellent 10 degrees of gun depression, and its high DPM 90mm is makes it a very good brawler. And the only problem you face is being able to trade. It cannot trade as effectively as other tanks can, and the side armor is really nice. It's 86mm, so you can side scrape a little bit, but don't overdo it because there are cheeks on your hull that can be penetrated. It's similar to the weak spots of the M6A2E1, and you need to be careful of that. And there's no visual drawbacks. This tank looks awesome, and I think that if you generally view this tech tree, then you will find that most of these tanks are quite sizable.
Oh yeah. Damn boy. Damn boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick ass boy. Damn.
Comparing the M6 heavy tank with similar playstyle heavy tanks at its tier and its predecessor, the T1 heavy tank, you can immediately see that the mobility and the gun handling are considerably better than all of the other tanks that are shown in the comparison here. The gun is quite nice. It has good penetration for its tier. It's 160 default without calibrated shells, and I'd recommend the gun rammer, but that will be something later. And the advantage of mobility can be exploited to get to early positions to get nice shots off, because you have nice DPM at 1845 per minute. And yes, and how to counter this tank? Countering this tank, if you've paid attention, I mentioned the side cheeks of the hull. Make sure you search for that. They are pretty easy to penetrate, as well as the sides. The sides, especially where the tracks are, if you just shoot those, not the front side, because that will always bounce. And if you shoot the sides, even at a slightly steep angle, it can penetrate pretty easily. Of course, do not shoot it with heat, because it will not penetrate since it's spaced armor. But I think you will find it a little bit weak on that part of the hull, so make sure to find that. And most of you would be able to penetrate the armor from the front, because it's only 102mm of armor on the hull, so that's a pretty big weak spot in of itself. Next is the T29 heavy tank. It is arguably the best tank in the game for tier, and it's my second favorite tank in this tree, because it's just so good at everything. And it's the first tank in the American heavy line to access the improved engine power booster, which is a special consumable, making its top speed from 37 kilometers per hour to 45 kilometers per hour for a small amount of time. Its 105mm gun has one of the best DPMs as a heavy, and having DPM and alpha damage Unlike, for example, the Tiger 1, it is very unique in its sense, and its armor is very reliable. And if you compare it to other tanks that have similar playstyles, like the Tiger P, the M6A2E1, such and such, and the turret is really good, and it's at 275 millimeters of armor, and no one can really hope to penetrate that, even with Pramo. Maybe the cupola can be penetrated, but if you keep wiggling and pumping out to pressure targets, you'll be fine. The hull armor is also thick, and it's also angled, so you can bounce a lot of shots, and it can be challenging for some tier 8 heavies. You can also side scrape, or as I said, hold down in the T29, and your only issue may be the gun dispersion and aim time, but that's kind of negated because you're on the front line, and all the enemies that you're going to be facing are usually on the front lines with you, and you don't really need to aim that much. And the T29 can put serious hurt when used right, and I think it really is a very versatile tank. It can defend almost any position that you put it in. To counter the T29, if you're in a medium tank or a light tank, exploit your mobility to circle around the tank, and make sure to shoot the hull, because the hull is incredibly weak, especially on the backside, and some guns can penetrate with high explosive, and that'll deal a considerable amount of damage and possible fire as well. If you're in a heavy tank, you should aim for the drive wheels and the lower glacis. If you can penetrate the upper glacis, that's completely fine. The entire hull is basically a weak spot if you get an altitude advantage. So if you're looking down on the armor plates that are angled, it's going to be angled towards you, so it's going to be 90 degrees, and so you can be able to penetrate it no problem. And if you feel like you can't penetrate it, then don't engage it. You don't have to engage every single tank that's in the enemy team. No one ever said that you should peek out to take unnecessary damage. It's totally not needed. Now to the T32 heavy tank. Now if you liked the T29, then you'll enjoy the T32 as well, because it's essentially a better T29. It has even more armor on the turret, notably, and improved T29 characteristics. At tier 8, the armor is impenetrable on the turret. Even if they were to load premium shells, they'd have a really hard time trying to crack its very thick turret. It is basically immune when it's hull down. Your only major drawback on the T32 is its low penetration for its tier. So one way to solve this is to, if you have enough credits and you're confident at aiming, and you can load Pramo or shoot exploit enemy weak spots, and tanks, such as the VK100 or the Maushan or stuff like that, and they have huge cupolas. If you aim correctly, you are able to hit those kind of shots without having to really worry about not penetrating their armor. And even if you can't penetrate their armor, you can still hold the line and still kind of bait the shots from the enemy, so that supporting tank destroyers and other heavy tanks that are alongside you can support you while you're taking all those shots. And the T32 is, unlike the T29, it's not that tall. It's actually pretty low on the ground, so I think a low silhouette with that much gun depression is really nice. And it's there's the cupolas, they're basically non-existent, so I don't think you should worry about anyone penetrating your turret, apart from high caliber, high explosive that may be able to tickle you a little bit, but otherwise you should be all right. holding the line. Comparing the T32 with similar tanks that have similar gameplay is that it has better engine characteristics, and it has a little bit better gun handling than some of them, and you really should exploit this. I've seen this many times about the mobility of tanks such as the T32, especially when it has the special consumables, is it's very good to get into early positions, and that can be crucial to winning the game. And countering the T32 is easy. You just need to get around it. If you manage to kick it out of its hold down position, it doesn't have much going for it because the whole armor is pretty weak, and it's easily penetrated even by tier 7 tanks such as the LTTB. Shooting its engine does set it on fire quite a lot, I find, so make sure to find that. The M103 is a tier for tier better tank than a T110e5. It's a sort of a tier 10 tank at tier 9, similar to how a T29 is more of a tier 8 tank at tier 7. It has armor, it has speed, it has gun handling, DPM, firepower, and most importantly those special consumables. You can almost guarantee a win if you're top tier in this tank. Against tier 8s and sometimes tier 7s, very rare, it can unload a lot of lead, and it can absolutely, they have no chance of penetrating you if you're in a very good position. It has a very powerful 120mm gun that has the highest penetration among all tier 9 heavies and is on par with the IS-8 and the ST-1. The 340mm heat pen will make most heavies be turned into butter. The gun handling is sort of like the Germans. This tank has really no drawbacks besides the weak side armor and the traverse speed. If you could only show your frontal armor and use its negative 8 degrees of gun depression in a hold down position, even tier 10 tanks will have a hard time penetrating this tank. Now, how you counter this tank is similar to the T32 and the T29, by pressuring it to leaving its hold down position so it cannot be able to defend well, because the hull is a weak spot. Try shooting for the drive wheel, try shooting for the engine. These tanks have some vulnerability to fire, and you can penetrate with high explosive if you have large caliber guns like the Grill or say the Waffenträger Panzer IV, such and such. Finally, the T110e5. The main focus of this video. So the T110e5 is a top tier powerhouse. It can cripple every tank in the game. This is absolutely true, and it's extremely dangerous when it's in the right hands. It has all the trades of a true heavy tank, albeit this is a biased opinion, but it is really a very good heavy tank and possibly one of the best in the game. The T110e5 makes the characteristics of the M103 superbly better. I don't know if that makes sense. Way more armor, it's smaller, better gun handling, and damage per minute. The speed also has gone up, and it retains the special consumables, like all the other tanks that predecess it. And you could say its only drawback besides the weak side armor and is the slow traverse speed, and by the time you get to tier 10, all the weaknesses of the E5 are basically have stayed true on the predecessors, such as the M103, most notably the T29. You should be used to those drawbacks. You should be able to have figured out how to counter those drawbacks by then. If you just that's basically how it goes. And It completely shreds medium tanks.
Crazy hamburger! Crazy hamburger! This is horrible! Crazy hamburger! Crazy hamburger! Crazy hamburger! Dead as hell! Oh shit!
And it can also reliably fight heavy tanks. The only thing you have to do is to not overexpose yourself, meaning pay attention to your terrain and exploit its -8 degrees of gun depression, which is really good. And the turret is very strong. Make sure to hide your drive wheel in a side scraping position, and your effective side armor can range from 300 to around 400 millimeters of armor if angled correctly. But also on a side scraping position, you have to watch out of over angling. You really need to pay attention of these because one slight mistake can cost you the game. And yes, practicing this in a training room is also, a thing you can do. Countering this vehicle is quite easy. If you kick the T110e5 out of its position, so that means pushing it aggressively with, a platoon mate. If you don't have a platoon mate, try calling a teammate with you, and you can kill it by shooting the sides of its hull or the engine, which can set a fire, and of course it can get you to win a battle. Or if it's side scraping, you can exploit that drive wheel weak spot, and you can concentrate fire on that and it will die quickly. Overall, if you like thick tanks, and hold down positions with okay guns, okay maneuverability, and a lot of armor, then this tech tree is worth your time. If you think that you want to be more aggressive, then I suggest picking tanks like the IS-7 or the IS-4. If you really don't want to pay attention to the terrain that you're on, then you should just not play the game at all. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.